In our top story this hour, former National Prosecuting Authority head Mxolisi Nxasana is back in the hot seat at the State Capture inquiry. The former NPA head told the Commission that some officials told him of the dirty tricks campaign against him. Nxasana alleges that Advocate Nomgcobo Jiba and Advocate Lawrence Mrwebi were plotting to oust him from his position. He was removed from office in 2017 with a golden handshake of 17 million rand. In his first appearance, he detailed to the Commission about the political meddling that was taking place at the NPA.
I believed that Advocate Jiba and Mrwebi, in running their campaign to get me removed from the NPA, they also peddled some misinformation to the president that I intended to reinstate charges against him. That I say because every corner that I went to, I was confronted by the same question. In Durban, here in Gauteng, everywhere, people were asking me that they hear that the reason why the president wants me out is because he was told that I intended to reinstate charges against him, which is something that I had not even formulated the intention to do because I had not even seen that docket itself. The docket at the time still remained with Advocate Jiba, and she had not given the docket to me.
Nxasana further testified about a meeting that he had with former President Jacob Zuma, adding that a meeting between them only became possible after an interdict against Zuma's move to suspend him was instituted.
It's not a meeting at a flat in Durban, but I'm referring to a flat in Durban here. At a meeting that I had with the president, one of the meetings, after I subsequently had meetings with him, that was after I had instituted that interdict. And we agreed to halt the interdict, and we then started the negotiations. It's one of the meetings that I had with him, where after I explained myself to him that I'm aware of all this campaign, I told him of all this campaign. This campaign started before I even came to the office after he had made the announcement that I was appointed as the NDPP. Then I remember he said to me, you know, one of the things people have told him about me is that I was meeting Mr. Nxuga, who is the first national director of public prosecution. And he said the information that he had is that I was meeting Nxuga at a certain flat in Durban, and those people were even prepared to go and show him the flat where Nxuga and I would meet. And he then said to me, you know, Mfanagit, once a person mentions the name of that person, of Nxuga, I simply go crazy because that person, referring to Mr. Nxuga, he hates him. Nxuga hates the president.
Well, we're now joined in studio by political analyst Mr. Levy Ndou to unpack today's proceedings at the Zondo Commission. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Always a pleasure having you in studio.
Good afternoon to you, Peter.
All right, so Mxolisi Nxasana again on the stand. Did you hear anything new from his testimony today?
No, there was nothing new, but what is important about his testimony is that he still confirms that there was a lot of interference in the NPA, and also at the same time that there were people who were apparently planted in the organization in order to destabilize the entire institution. And for the greater part of the morning, he was very much relaxed, but presenting a posture that clearly indicates that the interference that was there had a lot of frustrations on him and in the entire running of the institution.
And all of this pointing back to the president at the time, he was suggesting that perhaps there were fears that he might constitute charges against the former president.
Indeed, and I think that is why he says that the reasons provided for him to be removed and the bringing in of the commission, there were no quite sufficient reasons that will actually warrant him to be suspended. But what he also emphasized was the fact that he tried his best to create a professional working relationship with the other advocates, and were actually not prepared to cooperate with him. But at the same time, these are the two colleagues that were very close to the president and indeed providing wrong information to the president.
Why do you think his testimony would be in the midst of a state capture inquiry?
I think what is important here would be, firstly, to look at the interference of politicians in the running of independent institutions that supports our democracy. And number two would be that there seemed to have been a deliberate move by those that were in power to put certain individuals so that they actually frustrate some of the projects of this kind of institutions by working within the institution, but also at the same time going out, provide information for their political authorities.
Jiba and Mxolisi have denied all of this, and I guess the Commission of Inquiry is going to have to try and make up its mind. But again, the President's actions didn't help tell their side of the story, because this commission into his fitness was set up and cancelled literally at the 11th hour.
Unfortunately, that is the situation. They couldn't conclude the work of the commission, but he is in a much better position, because there are records that shows that indeed there was a move for him to be removed, and the reasons as he provide are reasons that one wouldn't say they are sufficient enough to remove a person from that office. But we know why. The fear of having cases reinstated against the president might have been the main issues that actually influenced the president in ensuring that he actually gets out. Another aspect would be that maybe there should have been a power struggle within the institution, and maybe Jiba or Mxolisi thought that if Nxasana is out of the picture, they might actually ascend to the highest office in the NPA.
Why do you think the president didn't appoint Jiba on a full-time basis? Because she had been acting in that position for some time.
It might be quite difficult to understand, but maybe he wanted someone who would actually play a role of checking on the activities of the institution and actually provide the information to the president so that the president is able to act in advance. Or maybe he felt that she wasn't fit enough to occupy that office. But that will actually require a much better understanding from the former president.
Is there political fallout, or is this just going to affect maybe just 3 individuals that have been described here?
I don't think so. There are a lot of people that are working in that institution. There is a possibility that some might have been very much cooperative to Nxasana. Some have been very cooperative to Mxolisi and Jiba in terms of getting all the necessary information, because there were a lot of cases that were actually going on. And that is why sometimes it's important, in this kind of institutions that supports our democracy, when there are issues or problems in those institutions, we don't only have to point a finger on those that are heading those institutions. We need to look at the entire institutions broadly and say, what are the problems? What is the attitude of the colleagues in these kind of institutions? Because they might have played a very, very significant role in all these activities.
And I would imagine that had the NPA been successfully captured, that really could have been a problem, not just for the president, but for a number of people that are being implicated in other crimes at the inquiry.
Well, it might not be a very easy thing to capture the entire institution, but it is possible, because one will have to do all these things systematically. Remember, there are a number of cases that a lot of people are still worried about, that are saying that what has actually happened to these kind of cases are we dealing with the incapacity of the NPA, or is it because there is no case at all? And I think that is what is in the mind of a lot of of South Africa in relation to those other number of cases.
Should former NPA directors appear here?
Depending on the relationship that they might have had with politicians, they might come to appear in order to understand how independent or how much space were they given by politicians. And if you look at the current case now, clearly there was insufficient space given to Nxasana to execute his responsibilities independently. He had people right within the institution that were not supportive of him, that were going out to spy on him, and at the same time there was a lot of political pressure coming on the other side, and obviously it had a negative impact on the workings of the institution.
All right, it's clear that we're still going to got at least three voices that have to respond to this, the former president and the advocates Jiba and Mxolisi.
Obviously, we still have to get their side of the story, whether what is being said now is actually true, and how then would they come in defense of what has actually been presented today. So a lot still has to happen. We don't know what they're actually going to come up with. All we're going to do is to sit and wait for their testimonies.
Right, well, let's see what happens. He's still testifying, so he may still come up with a number of interesting issues. Levy Ndou, thanks so much indeed for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on the program.
You're welcome.